I woke up to the slow beep of the heart monitor and the smell of disinfectant. The nurse smiled, called me brave, and adjusted the blanket up to my chin. My chest ached, but it was a clean kind of pain, the kind that says you survived. I thought of home, the blue armchair by the window, the plan I kept alive for 6 years. My daughter's laugh in the kitchen. I held those pictures like a child holds a toy, close and careful, afraid it might fall. They moved me from recovery to a quiet room. The afternoon sun filled the blinds with thin lines of light. I reached for my phone. One text from Julia glowed at the top of the screen. My lips curved before I opened it. My girl, checking on me at last. I tapped. Don't ever come back here. The words were short, cold, like a stone thrown into water. They sank straight through me. I read it again to make sure the drugs weren't playing tricks. The letters did not change. My hands began to shake, and I pressed the phone to my chest to stop them. There was more. Another line appeared, as if she had waited for the first to stab and then twisted the knife. We can't do this anymore. You're a burden. Stay at the hospital or find a place that can keep you. I stared at the wall until it blurred. The machine kept beeping like a metronome counting my shock. A nurse walked in with a small plastic cup and a soft voice. Pain level, dear? I nodded even though the pain she could treat wasn't the one splitting me open. She offered water. My throat closed around it. She tucked a strand of gray hair behind my ear the way my mother used to, then slipped out, leaving the room too large for one hurt body. I thought about the night Daniel died. Julia had sat on the edge of my bed and promised, I'll take care of you, Mom. We're family. She moved into the house after that. Said it made sense. Said I shouldn't be alone. I believed her because mothers are built to believe their children. Maybe this was a misunderstanding. Maybe she was scared. I typed slowly. Did you mean to send that to me? 3 dots bubbled, then stopped. Minutes crawled. At last, her reply arrived. Yes. I'm serious. Ethan agrees. It's better for everyone. Better for everyone. Everyone except the woman who raised her, who kept the lights on, who taught her to tie her shoes and say thank you. I could hear Ethan's voice in that message, even though I'd barely heard him speak above Julia for years. He was polite, careful, and tired of being careful. He liked simple solutions. I imagined him sitting at my kitchen table, nodding while Julia talked loudly about home care, about bills, about peace and quiet. I wondered how long they had been having those talks while I slept down the hall. I put the phone face down and pressed my palms to the sheet to stop them trembling. Anger rose slow, like heat from a stove. It fought with something softer, fear. What if I really was a burden? What if every step I took louder than it should be, every request another weight dragging them down? But then I heard Julia's words again, the way she had typed them, without love, without even a question mark, and fear turned to something clear and hard. I slid my feet to the floor. The cold tile grounded me. The doctor said I should rest one more night. The doctor didn't know my daughter had just tried to erase me from my own life. I folded the hospital socks into my bag and smoothed my dress over the scar I didn't dare touch. When I stood, the room tilted. I waited until it steadied. I breathed in. Out. I am still here. I texted the nurse's station. Could someone help me arrange a taxi for the evening? The reply came quick. Of course, Margaret. Are you being discharged? I looked at that word, discharged, and almost laughed. Not officially, I wrote. But I need to go home for a few hours. Personal matter. The nurse appeared at my door again, concern on her face. You really should rest, she said gently. Your body needs quiet. I nodded. So does my heart, I told her. And it won't have it here. She understood something in my tone and didn't press. She helped me sit up straighter, combed my hair with a plastic comb, and brought me a cup of tea I didn't drink. Before she left, she touched my shoulder. Call if you feel dizzy. I promised I would. The clock moved slow after that, each minute loud. I scrolled through old photos to keep my hands busy. Julia at age 6 with pain on her chin. Julia at 15, eyes fierce, telling me she'd be a lawyer one day. Julia at 25, in white lace, tears bright as I pinned Daniel's cufflink inside her bouquet for luck. Somewhere along the road, the fierce girl had learned to be sharp. Maybe I had let her. Maybe love had made me blind. The sun slid down the window and took its light with it. Evening deepened, and the hallway outside my door grew quiet. My phone buzzed with a message from a neighbor, Denise. Saw lots of cars outside your place. Everything okay? I sat up straighter. Cars? At my house. I typed back with careful fingers. I'm still at the hospital. What kind of cars? Her reply came with a photo. My driveway. My curb. Packed. The porch light spilling over a line of people holding gift bags and bottles, smiling at my door. The ache in my chest changed shape. Not pain. Something else. I could see the balloons through the glass on my front door. I could almost hear the bass of music vibrating the floor I mopped yesterday morning before surgery, because habit is stronger than fear. A party. In my home. The home I paid for with years of standing, teaching, saving. The home Daniel and I painted one summer with long strokes and laughter that echoes even now if you stand in the hallway at night. The taxi confirmation pinged. 10 minutes. I wrapped my scarf around my neck with slow hands. The nurse helped me into my coat. You have your medications? She asked. I nodded and lifted the small brown bag like proof that I still knew how to care for myself. At the door, she paused. Do you have someone to call if you need help? Yes, I said, though I didn't. Then I smiled so she wouldn't worry. The corridor smelled like lemon cleaner and quiet. My steps were small, careful, measured by the scar under my dress. I felt old and not old at the same time. Fragile and very clear. Outside, the evening air touched my face, cool and honest. The city moved around me, busy and unaware. The taxi pulled to the curb with a soft brake squeal. The driver got out to open the door, but I reached it first. As I lowered myself into the seat, I caught my reflection in the window. Tired eyes, set mouth, hair tucked behind one ear. I looked like a woman who had been left. I didn't want to stay that woman. I pressed my palm to the place above my heart, felt the steady thud, and whispered, Home. The door shut. The driver asked for the address. I gave it, voice steady. The hospital fell back into the distance. A bright island of mercy I was leaving behind for the storm waiting on my street. I held my bag on my lap like armor and watched the city slide by. At the first red light, my phone buzzed again. A final message from Julia. Don't make this harder. Please don't come. I did not answer. The light turned green. The car rolled forward. My hands were no longer shaking. I was going back to my house. Whatever waited there, laughter, lies, music, balloons, I would face it standing up. My heart had been opened and stitched closed once already today. It could open again for the truth. The taxi rolled to a slow stop at the corner of my street, and the driver turned to me. Here you are, ma'am. I leaned forward, gripping my purse a little tighter. From the window, I could already see it, cars packed tight against the curb, music thumping faintly even through the glass. My street had always been quiet, the kind of place where neighbors waved from porches and dogs barked at mailmen. But tonight it looked like someone had opened the doors to a celebration I hadn't been invited to. My throat went dry. The porch light spilled onto a crowd of people moving in and out of my front door. Balloons bobbed in the night air. The curtains that I had ironed myself last spring glowed from the inside with warm light. Laughter erupted now and then, sharp and careless, like no one inside carried a single worry. I paid the driver, his eyes flicking toward the noise. Big night, he asked casually. I gave a small nod but didn't answer. My voice wouldn't come. The moment my feet touched the pavement, the cool air felt sharper, almost biting. My house. My home. The very place where I recovered from colds, where I read bedtime stories to Julia, where Daniel and I had carved our initials into the pantry wood because he said every home should have our mark. And now, here it was, stuffed with strangers. I stood for a moment at the edge of the sidewalk, heart pounding harder than it had in the hospital. My stitches ached with every breath, but I pressed on. Step by step, I moved closer until I could see clearly through the living room window. My eyes darted from face to face. People I didn't know. Men in crisp shirts. Women in glittering dresses. And in the center of it all, Julia. My daughter. My flesh and blood. She wore a red dress I'd never seen before, her hair perfect, her glass raised high as if the night was hers to command. She was smiling. A smile so wide, so free, that for a second I didn't recognize her. She didn't look like a daughter worried about her mother. She looked like a hostess, proud and pleased with her gathering. At her side was Ethan, his hand at her waist, his mouth close to her ear. She leaned into him, laughing at something he whispered. My chest tightened. I wanted to knock. I wanted to bang on the glass until the music stopped and every head turned. But my legs wouldn't let me. Instead, I slipped to the side into the shadow of the house. My hands found the gate I had painted a soft green 2 summers ago. I pushed it open carefully, the squeak of the hinges sharp against the music. The backyard welcomed me with silence, the kind of silence only a garden can hold at night. The roses I had planted swayed gently in the breeze. Their petals brushed against my coat, as if they knew I was home. I found the back door unlocked. Julia had always left it that way during parties. Too many people going in and out for her to worry about a latch. My fingers rested on the knob. For a moment, I hesitated. Walking in meant crossing a line I could never uncross. But hadn't Julia already crossed it with her message? With her laughter while I lay healing alone? I twisted the knob slowly. The door opened into the kitchen. My kitchen. The smell hit me first: spices, roasted meat, wine. My counters were lined with trays of food I hadn't cooked. Strangers' coats were piled over the chair I usually sat in for morning tea. A loud cheer came from the living room, followed by the clink of glasses. I pressed my back against the wall, letting the sounds sink into me. Every shout of joy felt like a slap. Each burst of laughter cracked something inside me. I walked quietly, each step careful, almost like I was sneaking through someone else's house. But every picture on the wall, every chipped tile on the floor screamed that this was mine. From the kitchen doorway, I could see into the living room. Julia stood at the center again, the spotlight of the party. People gathered around, eyes on her, waiting for her next word. She raised her glass higher. "Tonight," she said, her voice cutting above the noise, "we celebrate freedom. This house is finally ours." Applause erupted. My heart stopped. Freedom? Ours? I held the wall for support, my knees weak. Julia's words echoed in my head, louder than the music. "This house is finally ours." She said it like a victory, like she had won something. And then the pieces fell into place: the text message, the silence, the party. She wasn't just pushing me out. She was erasing me. A neighbor leaned close to another and whispered, "I thought her mom lived here?" Julia laughed lightly, waving her hand. "Oh, my mother?" She paused for effect, her smile dripping with false sympathy. "She's not coming back. She's in care now, where she belongs. This is our home. Our future." I couldn't breathe. Care. She told them I was locked away somewhere, old and useless. My face burned as if everyone's eyes could see me even though I was hidden in the dark corner of the kitchen. The crowd cheered again, raising glasses. Music swelled. Ethan looked uneasy, his smile weaker, but he didn't stop her. He just let her words hang in the air like truth. I wanted to scream, to run, to collapse. But something inside me hardened instead. I straightened, pulling my scarf tighter around my shoulders. If Julia wanted to erase me, she had failed. Because here I was, standing in the house Daniel and I built, breathing the air that still smelled faintly of roses from the backyard. I stepped forward, closer to the edge of the living room. No one noticed at first, too lost in their cheers. My shadow stretched across the floor before I did. Then a woman turned, her glass halfway to her lips. She froze, eyes widening. Her mouth opened in a soft gasp. One by one, heads turned, following her gaze. The music kept playing, but the room went quiet. Julia turned last. When she saw me, the color drained from her face. The glass slipped from her hand and shattered on the floor. For the first time that night, the smile vanished from her lips. And in that silence, with all those eyes on us, I stood tall in the doorway, broken, stitched, and trembling, but unshaken. I was not erased. I was home. The room froze. The music kept thumping in the background, but no one was dancing anymore. All eyes locked on me, as if I were a ghost rising from the ground. I could hear the glass shards crunch under Julia's heels as she stumbled back, her hand flying to her mouth. "Mom," she whispered, her voice cracking. But it wasn't concern. It was fear. Fear that the lie she had just told, the lie she had built this whole party upon, had collapsed the second I appeared in the doorway. I didn't answer. My eyes scanned the room, landing on faces I barely recognized. Neighbors, co-workers of Ethan, people I had never welcomed into this home. They all looked at me with a mixture of shock and confusion. Some whispered to each other, "I thought she was in a care home? Didn't Julia say she wasn't coming back?" Their words cut like blades, but they were not the ones who betrayed me. Julia straightened, her lips twitching into a forced smile. "Everyone, this is my mother," she said awkwardly, her voice trembling. She laughed nervously, waving her hand as if she could brush away the tension. She just wanted to stop by for a moment. The lie was so thin, so weak, it almost collapsed midair. I stepped further into the living room, the weight of my steps heavy but steady. The scar beneath my dress ached with every movement, but I didn't let it show. I wanted Julia to see that I was not fragile, not erased, Not gone. Stop by. I finally spoke, my voice low but clear. The chatter silenced instantly. Julia, this is my home. My words hung in the air like thunder. Her face twitched, anger mixing with embarrassment. Mom, please, she hissed under her breath, trying to keep her tone sweet for the guests. You shouldn't be here. You need to rest at the hospital. I raised an eyebrow. Strange. You didn't send me to the hospital. You sent me away. You told me never to come back. Gasps rippled through the crowd. Ethan shifted uncomfortably, avoiding my eyes. I could see his jaw tighten, his hand twitch at his side. He knew the truth, but he wasn't brave enough to speak it. Julia's smile cracked. That's not, Mom, you misunderstood. Did I? I cut in sharply, my voice louder now. I reached into my purse and pulled out my phone. With a single tap, the message she had sent appeared on the screen. I held it high so everyone could see the bold words. Don't ever come back here. You're a burden. The silence deepened, the air thick with disbelief. Some guests covered their mouths. Others exchanged horrified glances. Julia's face drained of all color. She lunged forward, trying to grab the phone from my hand. Stop it, she hissed, her voice breaking. You're ruining everything. Everything. I snapped, pulling my hand back. What is everything, Julia? The party? The lies? Or the life you tried to steal from me? The words hit her like a slap. She staggered back, her eyes darting to the crowd. People were no longer clapping, no longer smiling. They were watching her, judging her, their admiration for the sparkling red dress fading into disgust. A woman near the sofa stood and crossed her arms. Julia, you told us your mother was gone, that she was in a care home. The woman's tone was sharp, cutting through the room. But she's standing right here. Julia's mouth opened and closed, but no words came out. Her hand trembled as she tried to explain. She wasn't supposed to. Ethan finally spoke, his voice low but heavy. Julia, maybe it's time to stop. Her head snapped toward him, eyes blazing. Stop. Do you know what this looks like? Do you know how humiliating this is? Yes, he muttered. His eyes flicked to me, and for the first time, I saw guilt there. Maybe even shame. But not enough to stop him from letting this farce happen in the first place. I drew in a slow breath. My body ached, but my mind was sharper than it had been in years. The betrayal had cut deep, but in this moment, I felt something stronger than pain. I felt clarity. This house, I said, turning toward the guests so every word could pierce the air, was built by my late husband and me. Every corner has our history. Every wall holds our laughter. And yet my daughter tried to throw me out as if I were a stranger. A hush fell. Some nodded quietly. Others shook their heads at Julia in disgust. She was shrinking now, her shoulders curling inward, her once proud stance collapsing like wet paper. I took one step closer, pointing toward the front door where the balloons still bobbed in the night air. You can decorate it. You can fill it with strangers. You can play your music as loud as you want. But you cannot erase me. This is still my home. The weight of my words landed. The silence stretched so long, it felt like the house itself was listening. Julia's chest rose and fell quickly, her breath shallow. She looked around, searching for a single sympathetic face, but found none. In the corner, someone muttered, "Unbelievable." Another whispered, "To her own mother." Julia's lips quivered. For the first time, her eyes glistened, not with anger but with panic. She reached for Ethan, but he didn't move. He only looked down, unable to defend her anymore. And in that moment, standing in the center of my living room, surrounded by people who now saw the truth, I realized the power had shifted. Julia no longer held the room. I did. I straightened my shoulders, my voice calm but steady. The party is over. And with those words, the house seemed to exhale, the illusion Julia had built shattering around her like the glass still scattered on the floor. The night wasn't finished yet, but the lie was. And for the first time since my surgery, I felt something close to strength returning to me. The silence after my words was heavy, like the house itself was holding its breath. The speakers still hummed, but no one moved. A few guests set their glasses down as if afraid to make a sound. Balloons bumped the ceiling, tapping softly like a clock. "Everyone can go," I said. "Party's over." No one argued. A couple near the window slipped toward the door. Another guest muttered, "I'm so sorry," as she passed me. Footsteps and whispers filled the room as people began to leave, eyes avoiding Julia. The night air rushed in each time the door opened, and with it went the noise, the perfume, the pretending. Julia stood rooted in the center, face pale, mouth tight. "You had no right," she said under her breath, but loud enough for me to hear. I looked at her. To my own house? Ethan finally found his voice. Maybe we should clear the room, he said to Julia, then to me softer. She's just stressed. I stared at him. She's been planning, I said. I moved slowly to the dining table, every step careful with the fresh ache in my chest. The table was dressed like a wedding. Linen runner, gold candles, flowers from a store I could never bring myself to splurge on. In the center lay a neat stack of papers under a glass paperweight. I lifted it. The top page read, Purchase Agreement. The room seemed to tilt. I read the first lines. Buyer's name. Deposit amount. Expected closing date, 2 weeks from now. My signature line blank. Julia's line signed. Witness line, signed by a man whose face I had seen earlier near the drinks. My finger traced an embossed seal. A real contract. A real sale. For the home where Daniel and I carved our initials into the pantry wood. Julia, I said, my voice steady now colder. You tried to sell the house. She flinched, then lifted her chin. We needed a fresh start. You'd be taken care of. We talked about it. Ethan and I decided. You decided for me, I said. A man in a navy blazer stepped forward, hands raised. I'm the buyer, he said quietly. I was told the owner was moving to care permanently and that the daughter had power to sign. I didn't know. You weren't told the truth, I said. He glanced between us, then backed away, face red with embarrassment. Julia's voice pitched high. You left me to handle everything. Bills, maintenance, appointments. I turned the contract around so the room could see it. You handled it by erasing me. I reached into my purse. My fingers found the folded envelope I had kept since the day Daniel died. The lawyer's advice ringing in my head back then. Carry the certificate of trust until you no longer need to prove who you are in your own home. I laid the papers beside the contract and smoothed them flat. This house is held in the Turner family trust, I said clear and slow for everyone still listening. I am the trustee. I have a lifetime right to live here. No one can sell without my consent. Not my daughter. Not anyone. I tapped the page where the notary seal lay. And my consent was never given. I pressed the speaker on my phone. It rang twice. Margaret? My lawyer's voice came through, warm and surprised. Is everything all right? Please confirm, I said, eyes on Julia, that no one but me can sign this house away. He didn't ask questions. He just spoke, firm and calm. Correct. Only you. The trust is clear. Any sale without your signature is void. If someone tried, they could face charges for fraud. A murmur moved through the room like a small wave. Ethan looked sick. The buyer took another step back, hands up as if near a fire. Julia's bravado cracked. She stared at the papers as if they were written in a language she suddenly couldn't read. Thank you, I told the lawyer. One more thing, please prepare a notice. My daughter and her husband will be leaving the property. I want it done legally and calmly. I'll start the paperwork tonight, he said. Are you safe? I looked around at the thinning crowd, at the eyes that now held sympathy for me and nothing for her. Yes, I said and ended the call. For a long second Julia said nothing. Then anger flooded back into her face like color into a painting. You're cruel, she spit. You'd rather live alone than let us have a future? You'd rather embarrass me in front of everyone. You embarrassed yourself, I said. When you told them I belonged in a care home. When you signed my name in your head and threw a party to celebrate it. She laughed, a hard, brittle sound. You always made me the bad one. You and your rules. Your house, your way. Do you know what it's like to live under someone else's roof and feel like a guest? Yes, I said softly. Tonight I learned. Her eyes flicked, searching for help. They landed on Ethan. Say something, she begged. Tell her we did this for us. For our peace. Ethan's shoulders sagged. He looked at me, then at her. I told you we should wait, he said quietly. I told you this wasn't right. He swallowed. You told me it was fine. Her mouth opened, then closed. The fight bled out of her. We can still fix it, she whispered, but she didn't sound convinced. I folded the purchase agreement, slid it back under the paperweight, and left the trust papers where they were, like a flag planted in the center of the table. Here is what will happen, I said. You will go upstairs with Ethan. You will pack an overnight bag. You will leave tonight. Tomorrow, my lawyer will send formal notice. You will have a chance to talk to him and to me with respect. But the selling stops. The lying stops. The parties stop. This home is not a stage for your stories. Julia stared at me, stunned, then laughed again, softer, weaker. You wouldn't. Watch me, I said. A small knock came from the kitchen doorway. I turned. Denise stood there, my neighbor, the one who had texted me earlier. Her eyes were wet and fierce. I saw the cars, so I came, she said. Do you need me to stay? I nodded once. If you don't mind. She stepped to my side like she had always stood there. I don't mind, she said, and her presence was a warm coat around my shoulders. One by one, the last guests slipped out. The buyer murmured a formal apology and followed. When the door closed, only the four of us remained in the hush. Me, Julia, Ethan, and Denise. The house felt different already. Less bright. More honest. Julia's face crumpled. She wasn't the hostess anymore. She was a daughter with nowhere to hide. Mom, she said, voice small now, I was scared. The bills, your health, the way everything felt heavy. It was easier to believe you'd be happier somewhere else. I told myself I was doing you a favor. A favor doesn't look like a party announcing my end, I said. A favor doesn't lock a mother out of her own door. Tears slipped down her cheeks. Ethan rubbed his eye with the heel of his hand, saying nothing. Denise stood steady beside me, a quiet witness. Go pack, I said. We will talk. But not tonight. Julia hesitated, then turned slowly. At the base of the stairs, she paused and looked back. Will you ever forgive me? She asked. I looked past her to the pantry door, to the faint carved letters, D+M, still there after all these years. I thought of the girl with paint on her chin, the teen with fierce eyes, the woman in the red dress. I thought of the text message, the lie, the paper with my name missing. Forgiveness is a road, I said. You start by walking the right way. She nodded once, like a child sent to clean a mess she made. She and Ethan climbed the stairs slowly. The sound of drawers opening and closing drifted down. When they returned with small bags, Julia stopped in front of me. I'm sorry, she whispered. I don't expect you to believe me. But I am. I didn't answer. Not yet. She and Ethan stepped outside. The door closed. The house exhaled. Denise squeezed my hand. You were strong, she said. I was terrified, I admitted. But I was more tired of being erased. We stood in the quiet, listening to the empty walls. The flowers on the table sat too bright in the low light. I blew out the gold candles one by one until the room dimmed to something true. Do you want me to stay? Denise asked. I looked around my living room, at the chair by the window, at the photos on the wall, at the little life I had built and almost lost in one evening. No, I said. I want to sit for a while. In my house. She nodded. At the door she turned. Call me if you need anything. I will, I said and meant it. When she was gone, I walked to the pantry and touched the carved initials with my fingertips. Daniel's laugh seemed to float up from the wood like a memory you can feel. I pressed my forehead there and let a few tears fall, quiet and clean. Then I wiped my face, straightened my back, and went to the table. I picked up the trust papers and slid them into my purse. I folded the contract I would return to the agent tomorrow. I turned off the music, closed the curtains, and locked the doors. In the stillness, I sat in the blue armchair by the window and held my own hand the way mothers do for frightened children. The night outside was ordinary again. Crickets, a car far away, the steady rhythm of a neighborhood at rest. My chest ached, but it was the kind of ache that comes after truth. I was not erased. I had drawn a line, not to push love away, but to call it back to what it should be. And in the quiet, with the house finally mine again, I let the peace in.